Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests as we talk about all the things that empower you to become your best, most confident self so you can step boldly into who you were created to be, the confident woman. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. Today we have with us Hope Pedraza. Hope is a certified holistic nutritionist, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and host of the Hopeful and Wholesome Podcast. Hope helps career-driven women and entrepreneurs to heal their gut, balance their minds, and feel good in their bodies again through functional nutrition and human design. Hope also is a mom, serial entrepreneur, and founder of a Pilates-based franchise, inBalance Studio. So welcome, Hope.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Yes. And tell us, you have some incredible things going on. I'm like, okay, we got to talk about the gut health. We got to talk about human design. And definitely I'm interested in learning more about your Pilates franchise, like all the things, right?
All the things.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So much to talk about. And so if you just want to tell our listeners a little bit more of like how you kind of got involved into all of the works that you do.
Yeah. So I'll start from the beginning, I guess. My background is in dance. I grew up dancing, pretty much my whole life from the time I was about 3 years old. And that kind of led me into the world of Pilates. And that's what led me into my studio. So I opened my studio about 10 years ago. I was presented with the opportunity with a space it was a failing yoga studio that was going to close down. So I got the space and kind of like had the opportunity to do it myself. So I rebranded and I made it into this Pilates-based studio that it is now. Just a place I really wanted to, at the time, this was, 10 plus years ago, there was really nothing out there that offered everything. And for me, I don't like doing the same thing all the time. I don't want to just do Pilates and I don't want to just do bar. I don't want to just, I like to mix it up. And so I wanted to create that kind of space where people could come in, whatever their mood was, whatever their energy level was, whatever their fitness level was, they could pick whatever. If they wanted to do the low intensity, like Pilates or yoga, they could do that. If they wanted to do a more, higher intensity class, they have that option. So I wanted to provide a kind of space with lots of options to connect the mind and the body and get this wellness like all in one place. So from there, I kind of, as my business grew and evolved, and as I grew and evolved, I realized that I wanted to have this wellness space for women. And I realized that the only way I could do that, it was to really put in that nutrition piece that was missing. Like if you're really talking about wellness, like comprehensive wellness, you can't have the exercise, the fitness without the nutrition. And so I started just doing like basic nutrition coaching with, the members who are coming into the studio. And as that grew and evolved, and I realized I love learning. That's just me. I love learning. That's just who I am. And so the more I learned, the more I wanted to, the more I wanted to support my clients, the more I wanted to grow this thing. And so that kind of evolved into my online business, nutrition business now, where as an FDNP, I can really reach people at this like deep functional level. I do functional labs and testing to really get to the root cause of what is going on in a woman's body. I work with women. So they integrate well together. And, as my wellness journey has evolved, it's kind of evolved along with my business. So it's been a fun ride.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love that you mentioned about the variety, right? Say like variety is a spice of life. And it's just, because it becomes so routine and boring. And it's like when it becomes that way, you lose that drive. And a lot of individuals just kind of, fall off and say, I'm not interested in this. And
exactly.
We see this a lot in the health and fitness space, is that if we don't give enough of the variety or enough to kind of get that edge, they, don't continue for the sustainability of it. Yeah. And I love what you said, that they're all integrated, which is so true, right? Because when we take our passions and then tie it in with that health and fitness aspect of it, you can see how they intertwine and then they all balance and complement each other. And, you talk a little bit further about like the gut health and how you kind of got into the gut health. And I assume, this is just my experience, you kind of get into a field which you had that experience in.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. For sure. I grew up with a lot of digestive issues, and tons of doctors and hospitals and testing and all the things. And I had, 3-4 colonoscopies before I was 16 years old, just trying to figure out what was going on, which I mean, for anybody, a colonoscopy is not fun, but for a kid, it's really not fun. So it was quite the journey. And, at the end of the day, it's basically the doctors are like, oh, you have IBS, which is like, I don't know what you have. We're just giving it a label, and there was no like protocol or help. There was nothing like it. That was it. And so, as I get older, and again, I'm the lifelong learner. I like to learn. I love to read. And so I start, reading up on things and educating myself. And so, yeah, that was kind of how my journey started. Is I had all these gut issues in my 20s. At some point, my early 20s, I had read a couple books on a plant-based diet. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's the thing. Like, maybe I'll try that and see if that works. So the next day I was like, woke up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be vegan today. Like, I just decided I was just going to go for it cold turkey. And I did. And a couple weeks in, my skin was changing. My seasonal allergies that were terrible, especially anybody listening who lives in South Texas, they're terrible here. My allergies were better. My gut, all these things started changing. And so that was kind of the light bulb moment where I was like, oh, okay, this nutrition thing is like, there's something here. Right. And, I'm not a proponent of like saying everybody needs to be on a plant-based diet, but for my takeaway was like, I found what works for me and what's helping my body heal. And now I can do that for women too. Like help them find out what works for them so they can heal their body.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And you're so right, because if everything that we experience externally all starts internally, and having that insight, or having like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? And if doctors can't find this, then you got to be your own self advocate.
Exactly.
And you found something that worked for you, and so are you still on the plant-based lifestyle right now?
Predominantly, yeah. I'm predominantly plant-based. I eat a little fish every now and then. I'm pretty snobby about my fish and where it comes from.
I don't blame you.
But yeah, I eat fish every now and then, but still, dairy and, meat, I still stay away from it. And I know how my body feels, and I know that I feel better eating this way, and it works for me. So I just stick with it,
Exactly. And that's the thing, and I think if anyone listening has probably listened to so many different of these, so many episodes that we've talked about different approaches to health and nutrition. And to reiterate, give it a try. If it fits you, hang on to it. And if it doesn't, then, you realize that that's not for you. And so,
exactly.
And I love that you talked about that, because I had a very similar, experience as well. Colonoscopies. Yeah. And we're talking about that stuff, not fun. And I come to find out that I also have IBS, and it's just one of those things that are so common, especially amongst women.
Yep. And
what I have learned, also a life learner, I love learning, and it's just that power to like grow, right? Your knowledge is power.
Yes.
And what I had learned from that is so much of it is tied, like you said, gut health, but more so, I think even on my experience, was hormonal.
Yeah.
Now, are you seeing the two somewhat correlate? That, and especially as a woman, when we go through the different cycles of the month, how it's changing with us.
Totally. Absolutely. And it's funny you asked that, because we had a retreat over this past weekend, and I did a whole presentation on like the gut hormone connection in women. And it's impossible to separate the two. Like it's impossible. And your gut, every hormone in your body is some way affected by your gut, whether the hormone is made there or the cofactor is made in your gut, then it makes the hormone. So you cannot separate the two. So they're so closely integrated. And yeah, you're right. As our hormones kind of fluctuate throughout the month, we see changes in our gut, right? There's certain times of the month where our progesterone and estrogen are low. Maybe you feel a little bloated and constipated. And then maybe there's some times of the month where you feel totally great, when your hormones are in this place where you're like, oh, I feel really great now. And it's same thing as we kind of travel throughout life. And as our hormones change as we get older, naturally our estrogen and progesterone drop. And so that's one of the biggest things. I work with some menopausal and postmenopausal women. Is constipation is a huge complaint. It's one of the biggest complaints I hear from them, besides the hot flashes, is constipation. It's because of our hormones. Our hormones have dropped, progesterone super low. So yeah, the fact is you can't separate the two. Like they're so closely integrated, and really, in reality, the issues with your hormones, it's not really the problem. I find the hormonal issues are a symptom of something else. And it's usually something deeper going on in your gut. Maybe it's some sluggishness in the liver, but the hormones are a side effect. It's not, I never start with the hormones when I'm working with clients. We check the hormones, but it's not the first place that we look.
Yeah. And that's so true, because what I was finding, and, similar to you, whereas you go to the doctors or you do the things, right, and you're not getting the answers that you're looking for. You're like, no, but I'm still experiencing these things. And so I saw a strong correlation between the two when I was doing some of my own research, because IBS is kind of like that mystery, like it just appears and people are like, I don't know. I mean, if you have it, I got it. And so many women, well, that I have shared, but I think it also with men too, but so many women experience that because, like you said, goes through the different stages. And if we're not attuned to our bodies, we don't put the two together. Like, oh my gosh, I'm constipated. Oh my gosh, I'm not. And so we kind of, we self-medicate too, right? I know for me, it was like through, laxatives, to the other end of the spectrum, taking some like Imodium or something. So it was just something that really, I felt like ping-ponging back and forth until I kind of got my nutrition in check. And that was through my own fitness and bodybuilding stuff, where I really had to pay attention to what I was eating. And what a change. So I think this is a great conversation, just kind of bringing light to this, because if you're listening and you're like, is that what's going on? Like, I don't know, maybe it is. And maybe that seed's planted where it's like, start paying attention now to the difference of your, your stools, to your moods, to your stages of your hormonal cycle.
I think that's a huge piece too that you're touching on, is just that awareness piece, because, and I find that so often when I talk to my clients, because I mean, we start having conversations and it's kind of like surface level, but then once we dive deeper and I make them really think, like there's this piece of awareness that's required to really like you're saying, being in tune with yourself, that's required to make changes. Because if you really check in with your body and you're paying attention to like you're saying, like how your digestive system changes over the month and your mood and your emotions, and like really becoming in tune with that, then you can really understand like what needs to shift and what things are out of balance. That awareness piece is huge.
Yeah. And so what were some of the biggest, you mentioned about your skin and just your overall like mood was elevated. So what were some of the other benefits of really taking a deep dive aside from the IBS, but like, what are some of the things that those listening be like, okay, well, maybe I don't struggle with IBS, but what's in it for me if I start really making these changes in my gut? What can I expect or experience?
Yeah. So, the side effects of a imbalance. I'm trying to think of a word. I was going to say dysfunctional. I guess that's right too. But the side effects of an imbalanced gut, I mean, you name it. It can be a side effect of an imbalanced gut. Low energy, brain fog, memory loss, concentration issues, joint pain, muscle fatigue, sleep issues, energy issues. I mean, you name it. It's a symptom of something going on in the gut. And so when you're really becoming in tune with your body and you can kind of take steps to balance things out, then you start to feel things shift. I find a lot of times we think of quote unquote digestive issues. We're just thinking about like diarrhea and constipation. Like if you're bloated or you have diarrhea or constipation, that's the extent of it. But literally any symptom, any ailment that you can feel in your body can be a symptom of something going on in your gut. So if you do deal with sleep issues or, memory, like brain fog. I think that's a big one. I feel like I've been hearing that one so often, is like the brain fog, trouble concentrating, that kind of thing. Things like just kind of a cloudy head. Energy issues too. I feel like that's a big one, is energy issues. People just either having no energy all day, or they just have these crazy energy crashes throughout the day. Now there's obviously other factors that play with these, but balancing out the gut and really honing in on what's going on in your gut can be a really huge first step into balancing those things out.
Yeah, if you do, I mean, just all the benefits that will come about from it. And so how does your gut issues and stress and like how it affects your poor sleep and all of the impacts of your performance as that busy owner and as an entrepreneur, or, not even necessarily an entrepreneur or owner, but if you're a human who's on the go, which is like everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I love that you talked about the different facets of how, the energy to low, poor quality of sleep and some of these things. And we just say, oh my gosh, I'm tired. Let me grab another cup of coffee.
Totally. Yeah.
And so we're slapping Band-Aids on the issues. And so you take your clients through a deep dive and kind of, how does that look like, with your clients, how starting out, like somebody's like, hey, I came to you and I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. What's going on?
Yeah. So as an FDN, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I use functional labs. And so, you can use a nutritionist and a health coach and other like health practitioners, but if you're not doing labs, you're really just guessing. And like our motto as FDNs is test, don't guess, because then you're just kind of playing the trial and error, right? Like maybe this works, maybe this is going to work, maybe this is what it is, but you really don't know. Testing is the only way to know. So the testing that I do with my clients, there's a bazillion tests that we can do, but the three main ones that I do is the Dutch test, which is measure a really comprehensive look at your hormones. So you're looking at, all your sex hormones and cortisol and all those, but it also looks at the metabolites of those hormones. So, going to the doctor, and here's another difference too. I like to point this out because people, and they come to me like, oh, well, I had this lab done with my doctor and this lab done with my doctor. Not that there's anything wrong with those labs, but they really don't give a full picture of what's going on in the body. They're not really functional labs. They're just kind of giving a number and a range. And it's like, I guess this is okay. Like that's kind of the answers you get from the doctor. Like, oh yeah, you're in the range. Like, but when you're looking at functional ranges, like I don't want to just feel okay. Like I want to feel great. And that's what I want for my clients, like getting the labs and the results of the doctor. Like, I don't want to just be okay. Like I want to function optimally,
Right.
Especially with like your listeners who are either starting their business or, running their business. Like you want to feel at the top of your game. Like you don't want to just feel okay when you're trying to get your business going. So anyway, it's like the hormone tests that I do. It's going like kind of like 10 layers deeper than just like a blood hormone test that you would do with the doctor, because it's looking at the metabolites of all these hormones and like what's going on further down the chain with your hormones that's causing these, symptoms to show up. So I do a hormone test. I do a GI map, which is a really in-depth gut test that's going to look at the good bacteria, bad bacteria, yeast, the pathogens, parasites, everything, intestinal health markers, like a full picture of what's going on in your gut. And then the third foundational one I do is the HTMA, which is a hair tissue and mineral analysis. And it's literally your hair, sending in samples of your hair. And again, you can go get your minerals tested at the doctor. You can do a blood test and it'll test your minerals. But the problem with that is it's really just an acute look at what's going on with your mineral levels. It's just kind of a snapshot in time. When you do a tissue analysis, a hair analysis, this is what's going on chronically. It's measuring like what's going on like 90 to 100 for the last 90 to 120 days. So it's what's going on chronically. And because so many of the minerals that you have in your body are supposed to be in your cells, they're intracellular, doing a blood test really isn't giving you good data because they're not supposed to be in your blood anyway. So the hair tissue is super accurate way to really look at what's going on with your minerals. They're like the spark plugs in your body. It's what's making all the things function in your body. So putting pieces together with all of those labs is where we start. And then we can look for patterns and connect dots to, oh, these symptoms here. And this is why you have these symptoms, and kind of put the pieces together.
Oh, I love that. And it's such a thorough process. I love that. And you had mentioned, about you go to your doctor, and that very, very similar. I mean, I just went for my annual physical and I got all the blood work, and they're like, yep, you look good. It's all in range. And so I just learned something new because I was just basing, okay, we're good to go to see you next year,
Yeah.
And
it's true.
Right. And you don't know what you don't know.
You really don't. And it's so often I talk to women where they do exactly what you did. They go in for their annual checkup or their physical, whatever. All their numbers look quote unquote normal, but they feel terrible.
Yes.
And so then they're like, I don't understand this. I feel like crap like all the time, but my doctor's saying all my labs are normal. Right. It doesn't add up.
Yeah. And you're kind of the answer, the missing link there that's connecting. It's like, okay, here's how I feel. The tests are here. So what's really happening inside?
Exactly.
And so obviously, play your gut, your health, your nutrition. And so all of that plays a part in your everyday activities and your roles. And, as entrepreneurs or just busy women on the go, this is something that definitely should not be, without caution. We have to take a moment and really assess. And I think because we live such busy lives, we go through the motions and we really don't stop to think about, wait, why am I on like my 8th cup of coffee today?
Yeah.
Why am I feeling like I'm dragging butt all day? And, your energy is low, or even like your sex hormones are low.
Yep.
Like all these things really play a part. So, kudos to you, man. This is incredible. Like, I think, this is just something that is maybe not talked about as much or as often because we're so focused externally slapping things on like,
right.
okay, well, you just need this and you do that and do that. And so we as, when I say we as women who now didn't know about this stuff 5 minutes ago, or was that woman who was like, okay, going for my coffee again.
Yes.
And you're like, what is happening?
Yes. That's exactly it. Well, and I think it's our Western society, we're just conditioned to treat the symptoms. And that's, I say it's really to no fault of our own because that's how we've been conditioned in Western society. And again, I mentioned this before we started recording, like this isn't bashing doctors or Western medicine because there's a place for Western medicine. But when you're dealing with like chronic issues in the body, the only way to really get to the bottom of those is to treat it functionally and to get to the root cause. Otherwise, you're just going through this cycle of putting Band-Aids on it and treating the symptoms rather than getting to the root cause and feeling your best.
Right. And I'm sure we've all heard, get to the root and heal that so we can bear the great fruit, right? Mm-hmm. So the fruit is our energy, our what we project from the inside out. And, that's kind of the reflection of there. Yep. And so that's just awesome. I love that what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You're so very thorough too. And so you do talk about human design, and I'm curious to know how that also connects to, you mentioned the gut health, the nutrition, and then the Pilates. So let's talk about human design. Can you just give us the 101 version?
Yes, what it is. Yes. So if you are listening, I know there's so many people who don't know what it is. So if you're listening and you don't even know what human design is. So human design, this is how I love all things woo. And so this is what I tell my clients, how I bring a little bit of my woo into my coaching with my clients. Without totally freaking them out. The human design is the system that incorporates these kind of ancient wisdoms like the chakra system and astrology and the Kabbalah tree of life with these kind of modern day scientific principles like biochemistry and neuroscience and quantum physics. And it uses, your birthplace, your birth date, and your birth time to bring this chart, what's called a body graph. And in this body graph, they call it the science of differentiation. And this is literally just a system that shows exactly how individual and unique everybody really is. It is your soul's energetic blueprint. And so I like to use this because, so when we're talking about holistic health or holistic wellness, holistic means, treating the whole and the mind, the body, the soul, all of those. You can't treat one without treating the other. And I know you talk a lot about mindset. You have to incorporate the mind and the soul with the body. It's all one. And so for me, the soul piece is this human design piece. This is literally the blueprint of your soul, how you were meant to be here, how you were meant to function here, what your path, your soul's path really is, and how to be on the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And so when and this is how I look at it, when you're looking at wellness through the lens of human design, I think that one of the root causes of a lot of chronic disease and chronic issues that we have is just spending too much time, too much energy, not even time, too much energy being something that we are not designed to be. And whether it's from society, conditioning, family, genetics, whatever it is, beliefs as a collective, we live by the shoulds, right? Is what I'm using air quotes here. Mm-hmm. We live by the shoulds, who we should be. We have to mold our behaviors to be this way or live this way or do this certain thing. And when we're doing that, and we're not doing it in a way that fits in with this energetic blueprint, like how we were designed to be, we end up meeting resistance, right? This is when you start to feel the burnout and the exhaustion and your immune system starts freaking out and doesn't work anymore, right? You start to feel these physical manifestations of this resistance because we're spending this excessive amount of energy being someone that we're not designed to be. And so human design is designed to help uncover that piece and uncover this, your soul's energetic blueprint. So we can live more in alignment with who we're meant to be, to live in this flow state is what I call it. Live in this flow state where you don't have to meet resistance because you're living with how you were designed to be. And you have a better understanding of you. When I first did my human design, I worked with a human design coach for a while. It was, if you haven't done it, I will say this, if you've never done your human design chart, you can get it for free online. There's a bazillion sites out there. I typically recommend going to myhumandesign.com. I think she does the best job of simplifying it because it can get real complicated real fast. And you can go down all these rabbit holes and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. But if you go to myhumandesign.com, it's super simple to read and kind of interpret. You don't have to have a big interpretation of it. And you can just kind of get the basics of it and kind of understand just kind of in general what your human design is. and I know when I first learned mine, it was like, this is so cheesy, but I felt like I was meeting myself for the first time, but then also meeting an old friend where I'm like, this is me. Like all these pieces I felt like I needed to apologize for or change about myself. Like this is how I'm designed. Like I'm literally meant to be here to do this and to be this and to live like this. So it's really an eye-opening experience for someone when I'm like giving them, their human design reading, and they're like, it's like, speaking to the depths of their soul, because they're like, yes, this is me. Like, and it just allows them to look at themselves in a new way and really to live in a new way and to make your decisions in a new way based on how you were designed to be here.
Wow. That's really cool. I mean, I've heard of human design, but I guess I hadn't heard it explained in that way. And it makes so much sense. So thank you for just kind of, crash course right there.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how relatable. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm nodding and nodding because, we go through these different stages of our life and we feel like we're being pushed or corralled into something that we're not designed to do. And then there, like you said, there enters in this resistance. And then sometimes you're kind of caught up in the resistance. Like instead of wondering, why am I here? Like in this corral or whatever, however you got to wherever you met with resistance.
Right.
And you kind of take that step back and instead of saying like, okay, well, what is this resistance I'm feeling? Sometimes there's that thought like, oh, this just must be something that I need to push past because you push past your comfort zone or embrace your fears. And that was something that I think even from my own experience was like, oh, well, that's when you got to push beyond that limit and go. Mm-hmm. And so these are mantras I'm telling myself. But when you feel like you're just banging your head off the wall and you're not going anywhere, and one, now I know to say that's my gut check in there. Two, how did I even end up in this lane or this corralled area going in this direction? Yep. Is this truly what I want? Is this what I'm called to do? Yep. And kind of taking that pause. And ironically, I mean, you just brought this up and it just kind of really resonated because I feel like I'm in that season where I felt like this is where I needed to be. And I was getting a lot of feedback too and saying, you're, being very resistant, you're me. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it's because I don't know how to do this yet. I haven't experienced it yet. So I don't have that knowledge. Right. But then it's like the soul is just like, no, that's me putting up a wall saying don't go any further because that's not who you are. Yeah. Yeah. And so square peg, round hole. We're trying to make something happen and it's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. That's it. And for everybody listening who is running a business, starting a business, like it has like studying. I mean, I've studied it like in depth, but just knowing my human design has totally transformed how I run my business. Like, I mean, completely transformed. So just using it, even just in that sense, like, and just allowing yourself to run your business with more ease and flow, and instead of like trying to force yourself to do things in a way that you're just not designed to do things. Like it's a game changer.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So yeah, we're definitely going to include that link in our show notes. And if you just want to repeat again, that link.
Yes, it's myhumandesign.com.
Super simple and easy to navigate. And like you said, it probably just the results that you get would be pretty easy to understand as well, easy to digest. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And so, tying in your gut health with the hormones and human design, how do you navigate your health and nutrition as that driven entrepreneur based on your human design type?
Yeah. So your human design type is kind of one of the first things that I talk about with my clients. And that's kind of how you are here to relate to the world around you and how you are here to experience the world around you. And there's 5 main types, and each type is different energetically. And so their energetic needs are different. So that means the food they eat, when they eat, how often they eat, all of that's going to be different. How they work, how they play, like the things they do for pleasure, all of that is going to be different based on their energetic needs. How they sleep, how they should sleep, how much they should be quote unquote, like doing throughout the day. Like all these are going to be different based on human design type, and kind of using this information as kind of like a guideline, kind of a rubric, like where you can kind of check in with yourself. If you're feeling, the burnout, the exhaustion, all those things, and you can kind of check with yourself, okay, like where am I living out of alignment? Am I doing too much? Am I working too much? Am I, so they can kind of use the information around their human design type to better really better move throughout the day and better move throughout, move throughout their business so they can do that in the way with the least resistance as possible.
Yeah. And so you mentioned there's 5 different design types.
Mm-hmm. If I can go through them if you want me to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, listen, I'm all for the learn, and I'm here for the learn.
Yes. I can go through them and I can kind of give little like pointers for each one. So first there's a generator. And if you look at your chart of your human design, your body graph, it'll say it like, it's like one of the first things on there. So it's really easy to see. So first there's generators, and generators are like the doers. They are here to do things. They have a lot of energy, and they are here to do things that bring them pleasure and to do things that bring them satisfaction. That's like their theme, right? That to feel that sense of satisfaction. And so because they have all this energy and they're the doers, they have this battery that's refueled by certain activities, meaning that basically doing anything that's pleasurable and fun. And so you mentioned before, like doing things where you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. That's like for a generator, that's the question you ask yourself. Like, does this light me up? Does this bring me pleasure and fun? If it doesn't, get somebody else to do it and find something else that does bring you pleasure and fun. That's when you start to meet the resistance. Mm-hmm. So because generators have all this energy to expend, they are really meant to go to exhaustion. It's like a puppy. I usually equate it's like a puppy. Like you let the puppy run out in the backyard and get all its energy out so it sleeps later, right? It's the same thing. So with the generator, they're meant to do and go until exhaustion. That's how they get good sleep at night. That's how they get good rest at night. That's where they feel that sense of satisfaction. Like I've gone to the point of exhaustion. I've done my work out for the day. Physically, I'm tired. That's it. That's how they should feel at the end of the day. They should feel like physically tired. And that makes them feel good that they feel physically tired at the end of the day. So for manifestors is the next type. Manifestors. So whereas generators are like the doers, manifestors are the visionaries. So they have vision and then the generators do the thing to bring that to life. So manifestors have much different energetic needs, and their energy is going to be a lot less consistent than a generator. So manifestors, because they have kind of these shifting energetic needs, this is going to change how they eat and when they eat and how they work out. And they kind of work in phases. So if they're in an action phase where they're kind of getting stuff done, they might need more high caloric foods, more calorie dense foods. They might have more energy to do more like higher intensity workouts. If they're in sort of this resting phase, then they're going to have to shift that and eat more like cooling and light foods, maybe doing more low intensity exercise like walking or yoga, something that's less intense. And then knowing that they are not designed to go until exhaustion like generators are. So stopping before they hit that point of exhaustion and really taking time. I usually recommend for them to take honestly, if you could take an hour, I know that's not feasible for everybody, but a good 45 minutes at the end of the day to really disconnect from the day, whether that's reading or journaling, listening to music, something that allows your mind to calm down, kind of let go of the energy from the day and disconnect from the day is going to be really supportive for their sleep and just overall energy and kind of how they can recharge for the next day. The next type is manifesting generator. That's what I am. And when I learned about manifesting, everything was so validating for me. So I'm like, yes, that's me. Like, these things, again, like these things you feel like you have to apologize for. I'm like, wait, this is me. This is how I'm designed to be. So manifesting generators are kind of a mix between the two I just talked about. They're more generators than there are manifestors. So they have a lot of energy. Manifesting generators are the creatives of the world. They are these creative whirlwinds, and they are here to do all of it. They're here to do all the things. So I feel like I always had to apologize for like wanting to do so many different things because I'm so multi-passionate, but that's what I'm designed to do. I'm here to do it all. And that manifesting generators are here to do everything. They're here to multitask. They are here to be multi-passionate. They're here to be multifaceted. They're here to do all of it. So they are also here to do what lights them up in the moment. And when it's not lighting them up, then they're to move on to the next thing. And here's where they can get conditioned to be like flaky, right? Because I would think that to myself too, like, why am I being so flaky? That's just how you're designed to be. Because once you're doing things that don't light you up, again, that's where you meet the resistance. So knowing that, delegating is huge for those listening, and like to put this into practice for your business, like things that you're doing that no longer light you up and you're dreading it and you end up doing it like really poorly because you're just not excited about like that. That's your first thing to delegate that to somebody else. Also with this kind of like shifting, things that you prefer, like preferences, I guess, is also true for like exercise and diet. And so you might work out in phases. You do a CrossFit phase, and maybe you do a biking phase, cycling phase, and maybe you do a yoga phase, or you do a weightlifting. You can work in phases because again, you're here to do what excites you and lights you up. And once it doesn't, you can move on to the next thing and try something else. Same thing with food. Maybe you try the paleo diet, and then you try the Mediterranean diet. Like you try all the things. Manifesting generators do not like being put in a box. So restrictive diets and very restrictive, like this is what you need to do to work out, it doesn't work for them. So giving yourself the permission to be fluid with your preferences and the things you like, and giving yourself permission to move on to the next thing if it doesn't excite you anymore. Next is projectors. Projectors have they're much more sensitive to the world and energy around them. And so they're going to have to protect their energy a little bit more. Projectors, a 9-to-5 job is like a nightmare for a projector. Like they are not meant to work 8-9 hour days. They're just not. Projectors are meant to work like 3 hours at a time. 3 hours, take a break, take a rest, take a nap. 3 hours, take a rest, take a break, take a nap. They require more sleep than the other types. So even at night, they might need to go to bed a little bit earlier. Maybe they can, sleep a little bit longer in the morning, whatever that looks like for you. But giving yourself, again, like honoring that part of yourself that requires more rest and more sleep, and giving yourself permission to do that. They can feel weighed down by big portion sizes. So they're better at kind of snacking throughout the day, kind of small snack, kind of like grazing throughout the day. It's going to be more supportive for their energy. Let's see. And projectors, another interesting thing, kind of the opposite of manifesting generators. I find that projectors do better eating a certain way. Maybe they're better, they do paleo or plant-based or whatever, because it's like less energy for them. Like they don't have to think about it. So it's less energy to output because they know what they're going to eat. So that tends to work well for projectors. The last type is reflectors. This is a small percentage of the population. Only 1% of the population is a reflector. And they're very unique in that if you look at your chart, at your body graph, there's different shapes on there. Some of them are colored in, they're filled in with a color, and some of them are white. All of the centers on a reflector are white, meaning they are totally open and they're absorbing every ounce of energy from everybody around them. So they're super sensitive to other people's energy, and they're constantly taking in other people's energy throughout the day. So they have this, or they are required to have this really unique sense of being able to distinguish between their own energy and other people's energy. And so this big intuitive piece comes in for reflectors, being able to kind of distinguish between what's them and what's other people. And because they're so sensitive to the energy around them, their environment, their community, the people around them, their space is going to be really important. So if you are a reflector and you're listening, having a space that's your own at your house, whether it's a corner of the house, a corner of a room, it's a room, somewhere you can go and discharge everybody else's energy, discharge from the day, disconnect from everybody. It's a safe space that's yours, and kind of help you come back into your body is going to be really important for them. And then knowing that because their energetic needs are going to change, that, their need for food and exercise and rest are all going to change as well, and giving themselves permission to do that, and knowing that they need to eat and rest and exercise based on their changing energetic needs, and doing what's most supportive for their energy in that moment.
Wow. So much to take in. I'm over here just like, but that's me. And then
I know.
Do you ever feel like you're all of them?
Yes,
this ball, right?
You do. Yes. That's how you need to do your chart, and then come back and listen. And then you can be like, okay, yeah, you're right. That's me.
Yeah. But so if you feel like you're kind of a little bit of all, there's predominantly one more than the other, right? Like one.
Right.
Okay. And so It's not uncommon that you might have some reflectiveness.
You could feel, and you can feel senses of others. And really too, because it's not just about the type, there's so much to the body graph. Like there's so much. And so while your type, you might feel kind of like parts of some apply to you too. It also is going to be based on like those centers I was talking about, like the ones that are colored or not colored, filled in or not filled in. It's also going to depend on that, like which center, which energetic centers, which kind of relate to the chakra system. If you're familiar with the chakras, it's going to relate to that too. And so yeah, there's a lot to it. So you are going to have, kind of some characteristics of each, but it's once you kind of look at it as a whole, you'll be able to understand like, okay, like this is me, this is why I'm this, and that kind of thing.
Right. And I'm somewhat familiar with the chakra system. So those who aren't, if you want to give a quick recap on that.
Yes. So on the human design body graph, there's 7 chakras, and on the human design body graph, there's 9 energy centers. So if you look, you can read the book from the guy who basically like channeled the human design system and kind of explain how they split off. But basically, starting from your roots up to your crown, there's different energy centers that are associated with different feelings, emotions, and different energetic aspects. And so, and they're all associated with a different color. And so, your root system, root chakra, for example, is associated with like safety and like your connection to the earth and that kind of thing. And it just kind of moves up through your body and ends at the crown of your head. And I find this a really powerful thing to understand the chakra system, just because it really does correlate with so much of what we deal with from day to day, like our energy and, you know, how we feel and where the blocks are. And I don't know, I'm putting my woo out there on you, but if you've ever done a Reiki session, like kind of go through the chakras and then they tell you like what chakra is blocked. And, I had one earlier this year, and it's like the most mind-blowing thing, because the exact things you've been dwelling over, thinking about, stewing over. I mean, it's in your body, like it's energy in your body, it's in your cells, and they can read it or whatever, but it really does affect everything. And it affects your blood flow, and it affects how your body's functioning. I mean, it affects the physical parts of your body. These energetic pieces affect the physical parts of your body.
Wow. That's so insightful, because I guess you don't really put all of that together. And so I know that we talked about from like the mind and the body and the soul. And so kind of to sum it up, if you're kind of experiencing some of that low energy, do you know if it's a blocked chakra or if it's a gut health? Like, how do you
it's usually, that's a great question. And I will say that most of the time it's one and the same. So and this is what I love about human design as well, because in human design, when you're looking at the energy systems, the different parts that I was talking about, all of them are correlated to different like organ systems in the body. So like, for example, you have the head center, which is like your crown chakra. So the head center is associated with your crown chakra at the top of your head. It's associated with your pineal gland, which is in your brain. It's that little gland that's inside of your brain that's responsible for like circadian rhythms and your biological clock, that kind of thing. And so many times when you have, you're having sleep issues, you're having, issues with, sometimes this manifests itself as headaches, like you just don't have a clear head. There's something going on with your crown chakra. There's something going on with this head center, and it's manifesting itself in this physical form as, headaches or sleep issues or whatever. So it totally 100% correlates. The same thing, I always like this example with your emotional center, and your emotional center is this. So at this one, I feel like this is one of the, I want to say this is one of the most, I don't want to say important, but maybe it is most important, most powerful ones. Your emotional center is associated with your solar plexus. That's your solar plexus chakra. And this specific center, is correlated to a lot of your detox organs, like your kidneys, your bladder, your pancreas. And so if you think about it, your emotional center, this is where you house your emotions, whether you're letting them out or you're holding them in. And you think about your body's ability to like function. Your detoxification system in your body is one of the most important parts of your body, because it allows yourself to get rid of toxins. When you're holding on to toxins is when it starts to manifest as inflammation, right? Things going on in your immune system. So if you think about it, when you're holding in emotions, you're holding in toxins, right? It's all connected.
Oh, that's so true, because it's like sometimes you don't put the two together, and it's like, I mean, if you're holding on to something and you're feeling it manifest in your body, and you realize, okay, maybe the emotional issues that I'm experiencing, and it kind of turns into also maybe emotional eating. We find ourselves binging or just grabbing whatever's convenient, and we're just mindlessly kind of numbing out because we're hoping to feel that emotion. But yet all we're doing is kind of putting more wood on the fire, right? We're just going to keep that going.
Totally.
So if we were to address the emotions, recognize that there's an emotional issue at hand, it could stop some of the impulsivity of grabbing the next, whatever snack is available, and separating the two so that you can now be like, oh, that's what it is. And so emotionally, maybe you just need a good cry. Maybe you need an ear to listen.
Let it out. Exactly.
And I always say, whatever we hold on to will eventually come out in some form.
Yes.
And so kind of the same thing, we look at it as like, okay, I got to pee, right? You're holding your bladder, and it's like, well, because you put something in and it needs to come out.
Got to come out.
Right. And so the same is true with, where our emotions, our anger, bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness, those things, right? They manifest inside, and we start seeing it in, like how you had said, it's going to start showing up in like, maybe it turns into something worse off than it should have been. Or maybe you're just nipping it. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm feeling it right now. Like you said, a headache. And instead of just taking some Tylenol, it's about recognizing what is causing that headache. Cause you're just going to keep taking that Tylenol and Tylenol. And you're like, oh my goodness, it's not going away because you actually haven't addressed it. And so that your body's giving you that cue to tell you what is troubling it. And its medicine is its nutrition.
Yes.
And so correlating those two.
Absolutely.
Wow, I feel so smart here. I just
it's so true. Well, and if you think about it, like and I explain this to my clients when we're talking about human design, emotions are energy in motion. They're meant to stay in motion. When they're not in motion is when it builds up toxicity in your body. Like you have to let them move and flow and feel through them, let them out.
Wow. This is I feel like the light bulb just finally went on.
I love it.
Because you hear like from, okay, you talk to like one, a holistic nutritionist and they're like, okay, do these things. And then you might talk to somebody else who's talking about like the chakras and do this, but yet having this entwined and all together, which is what I love about the works that you do is that you don't just stop at one thing, but like, okay, well, great. Send you on your way to your next stop to the next person.
Right.
And you're bringing this full circle and how it, through your movements with, your Pilates and you offer so many different classes or services at your inBalance, right? And, and so just kind of wrapping that up, kind of bringing it full circle. So we put a bow on it. How do we see that through the physical aspect of your like movements, like, working or exercise and workouts and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, kind of like I said at the beginning, the comprehensive holistic equation it's the mind, it's the body, it's the soul. And so the body piece, it's the nutrition, it's the fitness, it's the movement, all of that ties into the body piece. And I mean, because you're a fitness person, that the feelings, that the hormones that get going when you're working out and you get the endorphins and you get those happy neurotransmitters going. So we know that fitness and movement is good for the body, but it's good for the soul. It's good for the mind. Like it's good for all of it. So, I mean, you really do have to put all three of those pieces together, the mind, the body, and the soul, for this comprehensive healing. And I will say I have had, and I can speak from experience. I mean, I've been a fitness junkie my whole life. I mean, I had disordered eating behaviors for a long time in my life. Being a dancer, that's just kind of, I think it's like part of it, when you're growing up and you want to look like the skinny ballerina, whatever. And for a long time, for years, I worked obsessively, OCD, compulsively worked out, injured myself a million times, had terrible relationship with food. But on the outside, I looked totally healthy. I was skinny, I looked fine. I looked good. But inside, my insides were like screaming out for help. Like my mental health was horrible. My emotional health was not even there. So just, you can meet people who look good on the outside. They quote unquote look healthy, but there's so much going on under the surface where again, they haven't addressed that mind and that soul piece to put the whole equation together.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So much of that just resonated with me. And I feel like, it's going to resonate with so many listeners and, especially our women, because of all those unmet expectations and pressures to look, be, and do a certain way that we, push ourselves beyond these limits, conform and neglect ourselves just for the sake of, getting it done and doing it, that, we're essentially doing more harm and damage to our mind, body, and soul by trying to conform to of this world, right? The pressures and all that stuff. And so how much I can relate to exactly what you just said. Emotions weren't even a thing. Like if that word even came up, we're just like, shh.
Yeah. You're like, I don't have time for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know what I'm feeling, but whatever it is, we just got to put a lid on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's where I was saying how it manifests in certain things because it hasn't had an outlet. It hasn't had a way to excrete out of your being.
Right.
So this has just been an incredible conversation. I hope our listeners are over here jotting notes down.
Yes, so too.
Yes, and of course, how can our listeners find out more about you, learn more about all the works that you do? And I know that you gave us an incredible resource with just getting started on the human design. So that might be an introductory place just to start for those listening.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely check out the Human Design website. That will be a great place to start learning about that in yourself. But if I am on Instagram, I'm at the Hope Pedraza. And then I have a free Facebook group. It's Live Wholesome and Healthy. And it's just all things functional nutrition and human design and all things mind, body, soul.
Awesome. Well, of course, that will all be listed in the show notes below. So be sure to check that out and give Hope a follow. And reach out to her, let her know how this episode resonated. And of course, just always, I'm sure that you're open to just hearing how it all plays together and just being a part of that as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.